Hey everyone, so this is the next video in this combo chapter that we're doing, section we're doing 7778. So in the last video and what we've been practicing is just how to factor. And so by now we should be very comfortable with how to factor whether a equals 1 or whether a does not equal 1. We must know these steps. We must be very good with factoring by this point because we need it to do what we're going to do today. Okay, so problem 2, why these are different is because now we're saying to solve. So when it says solve, we are looking for a solution, or remember we learned that's another word for root. We can have many solutions. In fact, we'll probably have 2 solutions a lot of the times. 1 is possible and 0 is possible as well. And what we're going to be doing is by solving them by factoring. That's what we've been learning. Remember, factoring, we're always making this chart. Factors of C whose sum is B. Okay, we've got to remember this chart. That's how we do it. And then one more thing we want to remember is we need to have it set equal to 0. I got sloppy. Set equal to 0. So we might need to get everything to one side of the equation. So these are just some notes. Definitely make sure these are true when you're solving these. Okie dokie. So let's do the first one. I realize everything's on one side, right? It already equals 0, so I'm going to just go right to factoring. So let's make my chart. We need factors of 14. The sum is 9. So factors, I've got 1 and 14, that gives me 15. I've got 2 and 7. Whoops, amazing, that gives me 9. So we go right to my binomials. I have x and x equals 0. The 2 and the 7 go right in the binomials. This should look familiar to what we did earlier in chapter 7. Once we have 2 factors multiplied together set equal to 0, that's when we create 2 equations and solve both of these equations for x. And those are my answers. Let's do it again. Change up the color here. Notice for D, not everything is on one side, so we've got to get everything to one side. Let's add 16 over. And when we do this, we want to keep the x squared term positive. So notice this a squared is already positive. We're going to keep it there and move everything to the left side. So now I'll have a squared minus 10a plus 16 equals negative 2a. Right? We just moved the 16. Now we're going to add the 2a over. And that one does have like terms. So I'm going to have now a squared minus 8a plus 16 equals 0. Everything's on one side. We're going to factor this, so I'm going to make my chart. I need factors of C, which is 16, that add to negative 8. 16, I've got 1 times 16 gives me 17. That doesn't work. Let's do negative 4, and negative 4 give me multiplies to get 16. And when I add them, I get negative 8. Those are my winning numbers. Negative 4 and negative 4 go right into my binomials. Set them each equal to 0, and I get the same thing because they're both the same binomials, and I've got a equals 4. We call this a double root or solution. It came up twice. Let's try out B. Notice not everything is on one side, so that's my very first thing is to get it on one side. I am going to, here's the 3y squared. That's the greatest x squared term, right? The leading coefficient with the highest degree. So I'm going to subtract the 2y squared and combine like terms over here to keep that term positive, my a term positive. Then I'll bring down everything else I have. I've got to move the 28 over, so we'll subtract it over. Y squared minus 3y minus 28 equals 0. And then we go to making the chart because we are ready to factor once everything is on one side. I need factors of negative 28. Sum is negative 3. Let's think about 4 and 7. So we've got negative 4 and 7 give me 3. Doesn't work. 4 and negative 7 give me negative 3. It does work. Those are my winning numbers. Plus 4 and a minus 7. And then we go to solve. We have to take it one step further because I'm solving now. Set these both equal to 0, and I've got my answers are negative 4 and 7. Let's check out E. Okay, so I want to get everything to one side. I'm going to subtract the 100. So I get 2x squared plus 12x minus 80 equals 0. So everything's set equal to 0. What I want us to remember is something we haven't done yet, but it is on our notes, and that's right here. Before starting to factor a quadratic, you should always look for a GCF first. And that is what happened here for the first time ever. If you look at this, my A equals 2, so that means I'd have to go through that long process of factoring. I don't need to if there's a GCF. Notice there's a GCF here, and that is a 2. If I factor out a 2, now my A equals 1, and it's way easier to factor. So I go right to making my binomials and my chart. I need factors of negative 40 and the sum to be 6. So I think about like 5 and 8. Negative 5 and 8 give me 3. That's not good. 4 and 10. 4 and 10, if I do negative 4 and 10, that gives me 6. So here are my winning numbers from my chart, right into my factored form. And I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. Notice I even set the 2 equal to 0. When I do that, it doesn't give me an answer, so I can really just ignore it. I've got x equals 4 is one of my answers, and x equals negative 10 is my other answer. Okay? This is all about solving quadratics by factoring. First, we need to factor. Notice that's the first step. First, we factor, and then this is the new part where we have to set it equal to 0 and solve. Okay? Great job, guys. We will do some more practice.